Hi friends, it is that weird time in between Thanksgiving and Christmas where everything feels a little bit like it's in limbo. I am sick of all things mashed potato, turkey related, and I really just wanted something that is a little fun. I was at work this morning and my coworker comes in with Panda Express for lunch, and I have been thinking about orange chicken pretty much nonstop since I saw that. So that's what we're making for dinner, with a little bit of a caveat. When I got home, when I got home, I was gonna go onto Pinterest and look for a orange chicken recipe because I have made orange chicken probably 100 times since I've started cooking at home, but for whatever reason, I still feel like I need to have a recipe on hand. And I have been increasingly just disturbed by the amount of AI slop there is on Pinterest, and almost it has gotten so indistinguishable between what recipes on there are just AI or actually written by a person. And I thought this is the perfect time to start challenging myself to just make things from memory, even if it's not going to be quite perfect, because it's really going to stretch my brain muscles and it is going to strengthen myself as a home cook. And I thought maybe that could inspire you a little bit to make things from scratch, make things from memory, as opposed to constantly going off of recipes, which don't get me wrong, don't get me wrong. I love recipes. I am a cookbook fanatic. I am going to probably start cooking through some cookbooks here on this channel, but I really want to start also flexing some muscle, working some, I don't know, just kind of practicing, just going off of what I have on hand and trying to create recipes based off of what I've already learned. So that's what we're going to go into and make some homemade homemade orange chicken just from scratch. You can hang out with me while we do that. And this is going to be a little bit of a chatty, as my past couple videos have been. Just with the holidays and things, everything's been so busy, so I've been doing a lot more of these, just hanging out in the kitchen with me while I work through some cooking activities. Somebody woke up from their nap a little too early, so we have a friend joining us today. For this recipe today, I am going to actually bread the chicken using breadcrumbs as opposed to what I usually do, which is some form of like cornstarch slurry. This is a bunch of bread that we had over the weekend, and it sat out on the counter overnight, never got put away. So I'm going to put this in the oven, let it bake for a little bit, and then put it in my food processor. That way I can get this used up. We also are going to bake this orange chicken today just because it's a lot faster and uses a lot less oil. While the bread broils, I am going to be cutting, this is bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, and I have 3, which is going to be plenty for one meal for my family. And I'm going to remove the skin and the bone, and then I'm going to cut it up into bite-sized pieces. And I'm going to save the skin and the bones for bone broth. So I have a bag in my freezer that I'll just add it to, and then we'll get to cutting it up. Whenever I make anything breaded, fried kind of chicken, I have started doing this, I guess you would call it like a marinade. This is gonna sound crazy, but milk, and maybe it doesn't sound crazy, but to me it sounded crazy. Milk and pickle juice. And I saw this from a video of making, I think it was Chick-fil-A chicken tenders, and it just gives it this really good flavor. And I'm gonna let this sit in my fridge for about 30 minutes. If I had thought about this morning, I would have done it this morning, but as I said, I was craving this like 2 hours ago. So I'm gonna let this sit in my fridge, marinate in that milk and in that pickle juice, and it just gives it a really, really delicious flavor when I go to cook it. For the sauce, we have 3 oranges. I have 3 I think these are Cara oranges. I don't really know what they are. Let's see, what does this say? Well, this says that they're navel, but they have a red, like a more of a red center, which is why I kind of thought they were Cara, but they were almost going out of, they were about to go bad, and they were on sale at my local, it's like a produce store, and there was a whole bag, and this is what I have left. So we're gonna juice all 3 of these and try to get as much juice for the sauce as possible. And then I'm also going to try to grate the skin to get some skin shavings to go in the breading as well to give it a little more flavor. And then I'm also going to cook it up with the skin because I like to use as much of the orange as possible. And I feel like it gives it a really good flavor when you use the skin. See, I'm cutting open this orange that said navel, which this all came from the same bag. So it must just be, they must just have put any kind of orange that was going bad, because look at the inside difference. So this one definitely, I think, is some kind of blood orange or possibly like a Cara orange. This one's definitely navel. So that's why, I'm assuming. It probably was just any kind of orange that was about to go bad, and they put it in their bag. I have half a cup of the orange juice, and then I chopped up a couple of the skins, and we're gonna pour that into my pot. And then I'm just kind of going based off of my brain, and it's about 1/4 of a cup of soy sauce. And then I have fresh ginger. I'm going to just have to use my cheese grater for this, but I'm going to grate some fresh ginger into here. Probably gonna do, I don't know, maybe like 1/4 of a teaspoon into there. I love the flavor of fresh ginger. Add some salt, pepper. Oh, and then probably some form of garlic. I should have done that first. I'm gonna mince 3 cloves of garlic and throw that in here as well. I bought this tub of gochujang, and anytime I make an Asian or an Asian inspired style dessert, or an Asian inspired style meal, I usually include some of that in there just to get through it, because I bought it for one recipe, so I'm just trying to use it up before it goes bad. So that's going to go in there, and I think that's going to be everything that we'll put in here. I'm going to turn on my burner. We're going to whisk that up. I almost forgot one of the more important parts, which is something to make it sweet. I'm using molasses because if you watched my last video, you know I have this big jar of molasses that I need to use up. And if you didn't know, molasses is not a forever lasting shelf stable item. It does go bad, so it does need to get used up. So that is what I'm going to be using to sweeten this. And once this gets nice and fragrant, I'm going to whisk in some cornstarch that I mix with some cold water to thicken up the sauce. Pre-mixing the cornstarch just helps it from clumping up once it's actually in your sauce. I'm going to add this in and make sure I stir it frequently and let this get relatively thick-ish before I go ahead and start on breading the chicken. But these are my breadcrumbs after pulverizing them in the food processor. Start the breading process. Basic breading, chicken breading station. We've got flour. This is whole wheat flour. Seasoned, salt and pepper. We've got 2 eggs. 2 whisked eggs. The only thing I'm not seasoning is the eggs. Everything else is going to get a good seasoning of salt and pepper. Everything is going to get put into this Pyrex that I use to toast the breadcrumbs. And we're doing just maybe a little more than normal amount of olive oil, because we're not trying to fry it. We're just trying to get it nice and crispy. I'm going to take some of the skin of the orange, and I'm going to use my cheese grater because I don't have one of those skin grating things right now. And I'm just going to grate some of the skin of the orange into the flour, and I'm going to do it into the breading just to make sure I'm getting that flavor. I drained a lot of the milk and pickle juice from the chicken, but I didn't drain it all. I didn't pat it dry or anything. And this chicken is also seasoned with salt and pepper. Just using my fork to work through this chicken and get it coated with the flour. Taking each piece with the fork, dunking it in the bag, and then putting it in my breadcrumbs. And then I will work through each piece of chicken like that as quickly as possible. I'm not going to be too attached or sentimental about this, and just going to try to work through it as quickly as I can, as opposed to getting every piece perfectly breaded. All of our chicken is breaded, and I'm a little bit nervous that my sauce is going to be a little too spicy for the kids. So I separated them into 2 dishes. One is going to be with no sauce, and the girls can just eat with like barbecue sauce. And then this, I'm going to add the sauce after baking it for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to throw this in the oven at 375. 15 minutes, and then I'll pour the sauce on top and cook it for probably about another 10 minutes. I have some rice that I'm about to put on the stove. I'm soaking it, and then I'll rinse it and cook it once the water is boiling. But I recently have been purchasing these big frozen bags of vegetables from Costco, and I find them to be so helpful on quick nights. I think a lot of people might write these off as like not as nutrient dense or not as good as the fresh veggies, which obviously I would love to be able to put fresh veggies on the table every single meal. But something like this is going to be a huge time saver. It's definitely not as cheap, but it absolutely is pretty affordable, and it helps me just get the bare minimum of veggies on plates, especially in the wintertime. Steam these in the microwave and add them to the rice with my kids' food. My husband doesn't particularly like vegetables like this, so he can have something different, but especially for little kids, I find this to be the easiest way to just quickly get a vegetable into a meal. Chicken has been in the oven for about 15 minutes. With this, I'm just going to flip everything. Come here, hon. I am flipping everything, and this is the pan with what I'm going to add the orange sauce to. And then I'm going to add my orange sauce to this one. I'm going to nestle the orange skins in between everything. I'm gonna throw that in there. Careful, hot. All right, and then this is gonna go back in the oven for about 15 minutes at 375. So here is final product. Definitely not as like sticky, saucy as your normal orange chicken, like from the takeout, but so much of a deeper flavor with that masala and the gochujang. And then adding in the orange in there gives it just this really not overpowering spicy, nice amount of sweetness. Really, really good, especially for going off of just my brain and what I kind of felt would go well in here. So good. I also think using fresh ginger makes a huge difference, which I'm really bad about using because I have dry ginger, but fresh ginger just stands out so much more in dishes. And I just added rice and those frozen vegetables. Write down the recipe of everything I ended up adding into here and linking it down below. But that is all I have for today, and I have to get to dance class. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.